Alright, so what's the next law? The law of passion and desire. Now this is very linked to the law of free will in that I'm allowed to desire or want anything I want. And in fact, when I do have this desire, it instantly creates everything around me. If my desire is disharmonious with love, it will create a heap of disharmonious results, of which I'll feel the painful experience of. If my desire is harmonious with love, it will create a heap of harmonious results, which my heart will leap with joy that I've just created about. But either way, this law of desire exists. Every single one of you, and myself of course, need to learn how to practice the law of desire. Learn how to live in our desires and passions. So, what do we do here in our relationship with others? We enable other people to live in their passions and desires. So imagine I'm now a parent again, and I've got my teenage son. I want my teenage son to go to uni. My teenage son wants to drive around in a car for 2 or 3 years and surf. Right? What will I do? If I obey the law of desire and the law of free will, I'll actually enable him to do it. He's not harming himself or anyone else, is he? Well, we will think so often, won't we? We will often think, well, he's harming himself. That's the time he's got to go to uni. He's got no other time to do that. What's going to happen with the rest of his life? And what are we now expressing? All of our fears, okay? So we're imposing all of our fears upon him. And what do you think he's going to do with his desire? It gets shut down, doesn't it? Now, how many of you, when you're asked, what's your passions and desires, you don't even know them yet? Why? Because when we were little, this happened to us. We were shut down by our environment and our upbringing, that now we have no idea really what we really want at all. And it's such a sad thing, because the law of desire is about creation. Everything around you gets created by what you are passionately desiring. Right? I was interested overseas. I had this experience overseas. I was living with the family for a couple of days, and it's interesting travelling around and staying with people, right? Because often what happens is we have interactions and they start learning the principles of divine truth in practice, right? What happened was that the daughter, she was, I think she was about 12 at the time, she wanted to have a horse. We're talking about Texas in the middle of a city, Dallas, and the girl wants to have a horse. Right? And she exercised her desire. She longed for this horse. She wanted to have a horse. She found a friend whose parents had a horse, I don't know what you call them, some stables and all of those kind of things. And she went along to that, and she groomed the horses. Every weekend she went there to groom a horse and whatever. She wanted somebody to give her a horse. She would pester her dad about a horse. He'd say, no, you're not having a horse. You know, we've got to buy food for it. We've got to do this for it. No, you can't have the horse, right? Anyway, she got given a horse. And the people who she was working for wanted her to actually keep the horse there. And all she had to do was earn enough money to actually pay for its food. So she went to her mum and dad for approval. And they told her she couldn't have it. And yet her law of desire, her creation, was that she'd already created that she's got it. And yet the whole process got shut down. Isn't that interesting? Because of the fears of the parents and what that might create and so forth. So it's really interesting what happens with this law of desire if we don't enable it in other people, in particularly our children, but in everyone around us. Every time you try to stop somebody from doing what they really want, you are breaking the law. So that means that every time your child has been suppressed a little with their desires, you've broken the law. Every time your partner wanted to play golf and you didn't want him to go, you suppressed his desire and broke the law. Does that make sense? If you go off for a little holiday for a couple of days and you wanted to stay home and look after you, you broke the law. you would actually enable the desire of your partner or your children or in fact your friends or anyone around you. And the opposite is also true. When you realise the person is not acting in harmony with their true desire, you will actually talk to them about it. And if they're doing something for you, you would actually refuse to accept it. I'll give you another illustration. I went out to dinner with a group of people. There were 3 women and myself who went out to dinner. This was overseas again. And I'd paid for the previous 2 or 3 meals in a row that we'd all gone out together. And the feeling in all of the women that were with me in this time was that one of them had to pay. That was the feeling they had. One of them had to pay for the meal. So one of them nominated she was going to pay for the meal, and I told her that, no, I'm sorry, but I am going to pay for the meal. And I actually got up there and just went and paid for the meal. I didn't ask for her approval. Then I came back and sat down, and she was really angry with me and told me and said, you know, why did you do that? You just harmed my free will. I said, I'm sorry, I didn't harm your free will actually. Your free will was that you didn't want to pay for the meal. Right? The feeling I got from you and everyone else here was that none of you wanted to pay for the meal. That's why none of you got up and did it. The only person that actually wanted to do it was myself, so I got up and did it. So I never harmed your free will at all. Because see, the free will happens at the soul level, or the emotional level, not at what you think. Can you see? You see, why often we think that we want to do something, or we thought that we were going to do something, and really we didn't want to. How many times have you sat down with a group of people who have invited you out to dinner, and then you've realised 3/4 of the way through the meal that they actually invited you, but you're going to have to pay for yourself? Because none of them want to exercise their free will to give you the gift of paying for your meal. Has that ever happened to you? When you've gone out? You often see these couples go out and one couple pays for their half and the other couple pays for their half. Fair enough. But how much of it is because of their fears? No one wants to desire to actually do something as a gift for someone else. Often that happens. All desires and free will operations and all of these other things I'm talking about all happen at the soul level. That is why they affect your soul condition. Remember, we've talked a lot about soul condition, haven't we? Particularly in the mediumship classes and that we've been doing. We talked a lot about soul condition because soul condition is what attracts everything. So this law of desire and the law of free will, when you break them, it affects your own soul condition. When you live by them, it actually enables everyone around you and your own soul condition to grow. That's the beauty of it. So if you were out with a meal and you were afraid to pay, what's the best thing for you to do? Exercise a desire, pay, and let this emotion of a lack of abundance be triggered in you. Do you know what I mean? Just do it. You'll find the desire of free will and release of that emotion, and bang, all of a sudden you'll start having some abundance. And you'll be able to do it more often. Right? Everything operates upon the soul. So that's the law of desire. You notice some other examples I've given there of our children don't want to do what we want them to do for us. You want to ask a question? You need to just flick it on. Right up. That's it.
I'd just like to ask a question about when people constantly like to give but sometimes can't receive. So they feel the need to be able to give because that's where they're at.
Their action is quite selfish, actually. The reason why they're giving is because they want to actually get an emotion in return back to them. And so their motive for giving, if they can't receive, is actually quite distorted. It's not a loving motive, and they need to have a look at that. We'll talk about that when we talk about love of self. So a person who's constantly giving, and we'll also talk about, there's a section when we go, I think it's down in the, which bit was it, babe? Was it the law of natural love, wasn't it? Laws of natural love or something. There was a section anyway that we came up with this morning that covers that particular scenario, where a person's always giving, always giving, always giving. but actually it's not coming from a desire, it's not coming from a sincere desire, or a passion, it's actually coming from an emotional injury of what they get in return when they do give. So that certainly is not loving. Yeah. Ken, thanks. Need a microphone.
For a partner to follow her or his or her dream or desire, would supporting or encouraging your partner, male or female, be in a loving
would be a loving act?
Yeah.
Yeah, certainly, except if you're actually suppressing your own desires in order to do it. Does that make sense? So if Mary wants to do something, I will totally support her desire to do it. However, if what she wants to do means that I've got to suppress my own desire to please her, then I wouldn't be able to do that. Does that make sense? Yeah. And that talks, and that's why we have the next discussion about love of self, because that's about a love of self issue. In fact, what happens with all of these laws is that you will have the exact balance that you treat the other person in the exact manner you wish to be treated yourself. Right? So this is where most of, and that's called the golden rule, by the way, that I said in the first century. If you treat other people in the way you wish to be treated, not the way you get treated, the way you wish to be treated. Do you understand the difference? Like, quite often we get treated in a certain way, and so we feel like, another way back, and we're in that law. That's not the case. It's the way we wish to be treated ourselves. So just like you wish to have your own desires fulfilled, you would also wish for your partner to have all of their own desires fulfilled. Now, a lot of people worry about that because they think, oh, well, what if our two desires are totally opposite to each other and we just grow apart? Well, if you grow apart, then it's highly unlikely you're soulmates for a start in doing what you desire. Because when you do what you desire, generally what happens is the soulmates get drawn together. As long as they deal with their emotional injuries in the process, they feel drawn together by their desire, not pulled apart by their desire. The truth is, too, that if everyone is loving in a relationship, you can't be pulled apart by one of you exercising a desire. Yeah. And when I say exercise a desire in a pure manner. You can't ever be pulled apart in terms of unloving with somebody. What I mean by that is that, let's say one of the partner realises that they don't desire the person they're with anymore. That they actually desire Joe Bloggs down the road, right? That's who they desire to live with from now on. Now that's a pretty hard situation, isn't it? To enable their desire. Well, you might love them, right? And yet the loving thing to do would be to actually enable their desire. Now, it would be unloving for them to go and have an affair and not tell you. Certainly that would be an unloving act. But even then, they have the free will to do that, and if I'm angry about it, I've got some emotions to deal with. Right? But if they come and say, look, the truth is I don't love you anymore, and the truth is that I feel like I'm falling in love with this person here, you would actually enable their desire. And that's pretty confronting, isn't it? Instead of spitting and, complaining and going with the girlfriends or boyfriends and having a session where we complain about our partner and so forth, we will actually enable their desire. Because love would do that. And love would also, if I was humble, deal with all of my emotions that creates in me of being rejected and not wanted anymore and all these other feelings that I need to do it to be loving to the person. Okay? Kim, thank you. At the back. Thank you. At the back.
I have a situation, I've had this, where the person I'm around is the the giver constantly, doesn't like to receive, hates receiving. Yeah. And I go, damn it, you're going to receive. And I push it on them. Yep. And I'm nice, and I try, and I give, and I can feel this, the imposition of it, but I don't know what I'm doing really. And all
no, that's out of harmony with love too. Mm. If the person doesn't want to receive, the best thing to do would be firstly talk to them about why they don't wish to receive, and do they want to confront the emotion, and if they do, then you might enter into some giving and seeing how they go confronting the emotion, but you wouldn't force them into receiving. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I struggle because I feel that's a cop-out and I feel this need to force it on.
Well, yes, it is a cop-out on their behalf,
Yeah.
but why do you feel like you can control their cop-out? That's the issue that you
my
have.
issue.
Yeah. So the key is to work your way through that issue, but it's a good point, Kim.
Thanks.
Yeah. All right, so everyone understand how the law of desire works in our relationships? We enable the desires in others and we let them do what they desire. In fact, we encourage them to do what they desire. If you really desire it, please do it. If you really desire to leave me and go with that man, go for it. I'm going to own all my emotions about that. It's fairly hard in some situations to do, isn't it? Owning the emotions. But remember, there are emotions in you that would be, if you're acting angrily or whatever, that would be being suppressed by you in that situation.